extremely interesting sessions till now, the earlier 7, each speaker better than the other. And today we have Dr. Divakar, who will be speaking to us on Atma, very fascinating topic. So a very warm welcome to each and every one of you, especially Dr. Hegde and Dr. Divakar. Now, I request everyone to keep their mic on mute because the session is being recorded. And if you have any questions, you may kindly unmute yourself at the end of the session and ask those questions. And I'm sure Dr. Divakar will answer them, right? So now I hand over the session to Dr. Hegde, who will introduce the subject as well as the speaker. Thank you, Dr. Hegde.
Thank you, Sajani, and all of you from the School of Ancient Wisdom for giving us an opportunity to take part in these classes together. And the program that we have been working on is on the fundamentals of Vedanta. Very systematically, we have come to the hero of the day. Who is this Atma? Who is the real me? That question is going to be answered. Sajani gave us a brief that in addition to the topic, we will also have a certain prayer. And so we will begin each class with a prayer, one very powerful Vedantic prayer. And I will recheck with Dr. Divakar that it is going to be Mahamrityunjaya mantra.
That is right, sir.
And it's so appropriate that we are on the threshold of Mahashivaratri. And we have this one of the most very powerful prayer is Mahamrityunjaya mantra, which Dr. Divakar is going to explain. So we have two topics. One is what is this Mahamrityunjaya mantra? And second is what is the hero of our lives? What is the hero of lives of everybody? What is this Atma? This is going to be addressed in this topic. The speaker is Dr. Gautam Divakar. He did his MBBS from Devarajadas Medical College. And after that, because of his interest in psychiatry, he trained at NIMHANS, Bangalore. He left to the United Kingdom for his master's postgraduate studies in psychiatry, and he got his MRCP in psychiatry. Thereafter, he worked as a consultant at the NHS. And being a person who was always close to Narayan Hridailaya, I knew him when he was in England also, because we had a chance to treat his entire family who were living around Narayan Hridailaya. So he told us when he was in UK itself that he was interested in joining with us. So once he finished while he was still in UK, he applied to work with us, and then he was selected to be the chief of psychiatry and to develop the entire psychiatry services. So since 2012, we have Dr. Gautam Divakar as a neuropsychiatrist. And since then, he has developed this department. We have a very robust psychiatry department. Even today, other psychiatrists refer their patients because there is a comprehensive form of treatment. And with his own interest and his background in spirituality, clubbed with his association with Param Vedanta, he has grown to be a great teacher of Vedanta. You will certainly love his presentation. And professionally also, he brings in spiritual inputs into therapy. So you have spirituality and psychiatry in Dr. Gautam Divakar. Over to you, Gautam Divakar, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for those kind words and introduction. At the outset, I would like to thank the School of Ancient Wisdom for this opportunity and the Param Vedanta team. And it's because of Dr. Timappa, I think most of us are still kind of, working in this hospital. And also, it's a great privilege that we all have the opportunity to learn Vedanta in a hospital environment. And thanks to sir for leading all of us. And we are truly blessed. Can I share this screen? Okay, let's start with this prayer. Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. As sir said, we are in the cusp of Mahashivaratri. What an auspicious day. And it so happens that we are now studying the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, which is such an auspicious and a powerful mantra. Let me chant this mantra first. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritaat. It is such a popular and a powerful mantra that most of us actually know about it. Now, this mantra is used for Homa, and that is called as Mrityunjaya Homa. Especially when somebody is going through a lot of difficulty, it is to avert themselves from any life-threatening conditions. When they are going through life-threatening diseases, this Mrityunjaya Homa is performed. It is also used for Japa, which is called as Mrityunjaya Japa. This popular mantra occurs in Shukla Yajurveda, Rigveda, and also in the Atharvana Veda. This mantra is chanted usually after the 11th Anuvaka of Sri Rudram. We all know that Sri Rudram itself is very auspicious, and after the 11th Anuvaka, Trayambakam Yajamahe comes. Now, this is an all-comprehensive mantra which gives the sadhaka or a seeker to attain all four purusharthas. In the previous class, we have learned that the purpose of the very human life is to attain these purusharthas. What are they? Artha, the basic needs; kama, power, comfort, etc.; the dharma, the righteous life; and the moksha, which is the parama purushartha. Artha, kama, dharma are called as preyas according to Kathopanishad, and moksha is called as shreyas. Let's look at the word meaning of this beautiful mantra. And I think this mantra is worth meditating upon on a daily basis, and you will see why. So the first word is Trayambakam. Trayambakam simply means the one who has got three eyes. We know that Shiva, the Trinetra, has got three eyes. We will go into the details of this, the trilogy of three in Shiva. So Trayambakam Yajamahe, we adore, we worship, we honor this Trayambaka. Sugandhim is the one with the absolute fragrance, or the sweet fragrance. Pushti is the fullness of life, or the nourishment. Vardhanam, one who nourishes our Pushti. So Pushti Vardhanam is that Shiva who nourishes and gives us the material wealth. We will go into the details a little, in a bit. And then Urvarukamiva, like a cucumber, release me from this captivity, bandhanan, mrityor makshiyamamrutat, release me from the bondage of the mortality and realize my immortality is the superficial meaning of it. Let's go to the deeper meaning of it and try and understand each of it. Now, so the trilogy of Shiva, we have the trident, we have the famous trident, and then Tridalam, the Bilva. There are so many three things which comes in Shiva. So what are they? The one, Trikalatita or Trigunaatita. The Trigunaatita is the Shiva who is beyond the Sattva, Rajas and Tamogunas. Trikalatita, one who is beyond the time, the present, past and the future. Trilokeshwara, one who is the Isha of Manushaloka, Devaloka and the Shivaloka. Tripurantaka, one who destroys the pride, jealousy, and the desire. These are the inherent enemies of the human being. Trishakti, one who is the source of Icha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and the Gnana Shakti. One who is beyond the states of existence, Avastatrayatita, Jagrata Avastha, Swapna Avastha, and the Sushupti Avastha. The one who is beyond the three Sharirams, Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and the Karana Sharira. Trimurti Adipati, who is the Adipati of the Brahma, Vishnu, and the Maheshwara. One who is beyond the Desha, Kala, and the Vastu. Tapatraya Hindra, one who gets rid of all the tapatrayas that we may face. That is from the Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika, and Adi Daivika that we have seen in the previous classes. And then Triputi Sara, one who is the Sara of Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. Perhaps the most important significance of this Trinetra or the Trayambaka is these two eyes representing the Laukika Chakshu, which sees the material world, the normal eyes, and the third eye representing the Gnana Chakshu or the Divya Chakshu. It is, in other words, called as Atma Gnanam or Atma Chakshu itself. So for this particular mantra, we need to remember that the third eye represents the Gnana Chakshu or the Atma Gnanam. So let's look at this slide and try and understand. In this mantra, there are three different Shivas that we will be worshipping in order to get these four Purusharthas. The first Shiva is the Pushtivardhanam Shiva. We have seen already the first desire or the first Purushartha that we attain is the Artha Purushartha. Artha Purushartha refers to all our basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, etc. So, and then comes, once we accomplish this Artha Purushartha, we will go to Kama Purushartha, which is once our desires, basic desires are fulfilled, we all of us naturally go into the next level, which is about comfort, position, etc. So, in order to get this Artha and Kama, we need to worship Pushtivardhanam Shiva. Then comes Sugandhihi Shiva. Sugandhihi is absolute fragrance. What is the absolute fragrance of any individual? It's one's own character, one's own guna, one's own personality. And that comes from Dharma Purushartha. Dharma is the righteous, leading a righteous life. Now, in the Vedantic parlance, Dharma refers to Jnana Yogyata. It is the combination of Karma Yoga, which is doing the right action with the right attitude. And we have seen that this in the previous sessions. So what is this right action and right attitude? Right action is that which is prescribed by the Shastras, and this is called as Sattvika Karmas. We have read that already. Pancha Mahayagnas are described here. And right attitude is that we do these actions as a Ishvara Arpana Bhava, as though it is a God's action, and then take any outcome which comes out of it as Ishvara Prasada Bhava. If a person is sincerely indulged in this kind of actions, his personality will always be one of full of right fragrance. His personality will be so pure, and that is Sugandhihi. And this Dharma will be the Jnana Yogyata towards the Parama Purushartha. Then later we realize that in order to get to the Moksha Purushartha, we need to get rid of Artha, Kama and Dharma as well. But we definitely need Dharma, which is a Jnana Yogyata, to go into the Moksha Purushartha. As you look at this slide here, Dharma will ripen a person to evolve himself to go towards the moksha. Only a ripened fruit can snap easily, like a ripened cucumber, which snaps effortlessly. And that is what is told in this particular verse. Now, what is moksha? Moksha is getting rid of our false identity. We all identify with our body and mind, and that is the ignorance. Getting rid of this ignorance is the moksha. And for that, we need the Gnana Chakshu or the Atma Gnanam through Guru Shastra Pramana. And that is what, once we are ripened through Dharma or Gnana Yogyata, with the Atma Gnanam, the snapping happens very easily. Snapping from the whirlpool of samsara happens very easily. For people who have not ripened and who remain in Artha and Kama, they will continue to be that, and they cannot snap themselves from the bondages of samsara. And that is what this beautiful mantra actually says. I think this mantra is worth contemplating on, on every day, and that kind of leads to this important topic of Atma. As Sir said, Atma is the hero that we've been trying to understand, learn, and be that. And Shastras say that hero is none other than we ourselves. So let's look at this particular topic. This is a very subtle subject. It's a very complex topic, and I probably will request Sir to also add in later on this particular very important topic. We know that in Vedanta, most of the Vedanta or all of the Vedanta is about trying to understand Atma, trying to understand, analyze, and then identify and claim about Atma. So Atma, again, finding an exact equivalent in English is sometimes difficult, and for most of these Sanskrit words, we don't have the English equivalents. Perhaps one such word is Atma itself. Some people use the word the self for Atma with a capital S. Some people call it soul, etc. Swamiji prefers to keep it as Atma itself, and I think that's probably something that we should practice as well. In the previous classes, we have seen the Anatma component. In the last class, we saw the Shariratrayam consisting of the Sthula Shariram, which is the gross body, Sukshma Shariram, which is the subtle body, and the Karana Shariram, which is the causal body, where Sthula Shariram and Sukshma Shariram, both of them remain dormant. And we also saw that Sthula Shariram was formed by the grossified 5 element, Panchabhutas, which is Akasha, Vayu, Agni, and Jala, and then Prithvi. So the grossified elements through Panchikaranam gives the Sthula Shariram, and the subtle components of these 5 elements produces the Sukshma Shariram. And both these forms are in the seed form when it comes to the Karana Shariram. So the Bhutam, the Panchabhutam, will manifest into Bhautikam. The gross body is the Sthula Bhautikam, Sukshma Shariram is the Sukshma Bhautikam. So we know that from the previous class, all 3 Shariras, or the other way of classification is the 5 layers, Panchakoshas, all of them are Anatma. That is, it is inert, it is a matter, and it is Jadam according to Vedanta. So according to Vedanta, what is Anatma? What is this inertness? That which doesn't have its own consciousness. That which is not a Chaitanya Gunakam. That is the first corollary or the first property of the Anatma. And the second property is that which is not Chaitanya Janakam, that which cannot produce the consciousness. The one which doesn't have the consciousness and it doesn't produce the consciousness. But we know that we all are alive, we all are conscious, we can see life everywhere. But how do we reconcile this fact? Now, on one hand, there is this consciousness, and now we are saying that there is no consciousness in the Jadam. Now we will see this consciousness, which is according to the science, medicine, is different to the consciousness that the Vedanta is talking about. This is another confusion that we all get into. Again, for Atma, we use the word consciousness with a capital C. Again, that is not the same as the scientific explanation of consciousness. Perhaps Atma, we should keep it as Atma rather than calling it as consciousness. Now, so we will see how do we reconcile this fact that there is so much of life that we see, but this is Jadam. This life that we are seeing is exactly like how the moon is, a moon is seen with a very bright kind of light, especially on a full moon day. So we know that the moon doesn't have its own kind of light. What it has is the Agantuka Chaitanya. It has borrowed the light from the sun and it is reflecting. It doesn't have the Swabhavika Chaitanyam. Just like that, we are also reflecting the consciousness which is being given by something else. And we also do not have, when I say we, it's the body-mind complex doesn't have its own consciousness. It is the reflected consciousness, also called as Agantuka Chaitanya. The other example we can think of is the electric bulb. Although the bulb is giving the electricity, it is not the bulb which is generating the electricity. It is a tungsten filament in that which is giving the light, but that electricity is coming through the electric wire which is invisible. So who is this lender of this consciousness to our inert body-mind complex? And that particular fourth factor of the personality or the lender of this consciousness is our hero, Atma. In Tattva Bodha, Swami Adi Shankaracharya says, Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vediriktaha. So that which lends the consciousness to the 3 factors. We have seen these 3 factors as Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avastha. And this can be called as the 4th factor or the Turiyam. But this is not just the 4th factor. It is in and through the 3 factors also. It is not a separate entity. It is enlivening the 3 factors, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and also beyond that. So our body-mind is the inert bulb being lit by the Atma. And this is the biggest shift or the jump that we will have to make as the students of Vedanta. Now, we will look at this very beautiful mantra from Mandukya Upanishad, verse number 7. So again, I mean, the nature of the Atma is talked about here, and the fourth factor is explained. Nantah pragnam na bahih pragnam, nobhayata pragnam na pragnana ghanam, na pragnam na apragnam, adrushtam avyavaharyam, agrahyam alakshanam, achintyam avyapadeshyam, ekatma pratyayasaram, prapanchopashamanam, shantam shivam, advaitam, chaturtam manyante sa atma sa vigneyah. So what is to be realized? It is that fourth quarter, so-called the fourth quarter, the Turiya. So again, the properties of Atma is described in this. And let's look at another beautiful verse which again talks about the nature of the Atma. So, or talking about this sentient principle. This is from the 13th chapter, Kshetragna Vibhaga Yoga, 13.2, Bhagavanu Vacha, Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetragnam iti abhidhiyate. Etadyo vettitam prahuhu kshetragna iti tadvidaha. So this body also includes mind. This body-mind complex is the kshetram, or this is the inert matter, and the consciousness principle which is behind this, that intelligent principle which is behind this body-mind complex, kshetragnam, is called as behind this kshetram is called as kshetragna. So now let's look at it. So this kshetragna is the one who is aware of everything which is happening in my body and mind. Just as I am seeing the screen right now, but I don't see my eyes. The fact that I am seeing everything is because of my own eyes. When we look at a photograph, we don't need a camera to be present in the picture. Although camera is not there in this picture, it is confirmed that because of the camera only we could see the photograph. And likewise, the body-mind complex is like the picture, or it is that entity that we are experiencing, which is called as kshetram, and the consciousness principle which is behind it is called kshetragna, or in other words called as Atma. Now let's look at the schools of philosophies who actually understand and believe in Vedanta and Atma. We have this Astika Darshana, the philosophies who believe in this Veda Pramana and Atma. These are Sankhya philosophy from great Kapila Muni, Vaisheshika from Kanada Kashyapa, Nyaya from Gautama, Yoga from Patanjali, Purva Mimamsa from Jaimini, and Uttara Mimamsa from Vyasacharya. So amongst this, the first four believe more in Tarka rather than Veda Pramana, and the last two of them believe more in Veda Pramana, and especially the last one gives a lot of weightage to the Vedanta. And on the other side, we have Nastika Darshana, Jaina, and then Sautrantika, Ibhasika, Yogachara, Charuvakas, and Madhyamika. These are the philosophies who do not accept or believe in the Veda Pramana. Now let's look at the nature of the Atma. And this question is asked by the realized student in Kenopanishad, Kavu Devo Yunakti. So what is that principle which enlivens this Atma? We have talked about Atma enlivening Anatma, Kshetragna enlivening Kshetram. So what is that which enlivens the Atma itself? The answer is Atma is self-illuminating. It doesn't require any other entity to illumine that. It is just like the sun, which illumines itself without borrowing any energy or source from anywhere else. Of course, all these examples have its limitations. So, but the sun illumines the moon, but sun illumines itself. Atma is Chaitanya Swarupaha. It is of the nature of consciousness. Atma is Swatantraha. It is independent principle. It is also called Satyam, that which is independent and doesn't have to depend on anything else. On the other side, we have Anatma, which is Mithya, which is dependent, seemingly real, but it is not really. So the world which is the Mithya is not independent, whereas Atma Swatantraha, which is independent. Atma is Nirguna, which is attributeless. Atma is Kalatitaha, it is eternal and continues to survive beyond our body and mind. Atma is Sarvagataha and Sarvavyapi. So it is not bound by the space. Atma is Ekaha and Atma is Advaitaha. There is only one consciousness principle. Science is also closing in with this. So there are a lot of great scientists who are working on the quantum physics and quantum entanglement, accept this Vedanta, and they are all using this in their hypothesis. There are some famous scientists, all of them are Nobel laureates. Erwin Schrödinger, and he says that there is only one thing, which is one without any, all the pluralities are because of the Maya, or the deceptions caused by the Anatma, and he calls it as Indian Maya. And Max Planck says that consciousness is the fundamental and cannot be explained in terms of the matter and its laws. The spirit is the matrix for all the matter, and so on. And we have so many scientists who talk about the consciousness principle. And of course, science cannot prove Atma purely because Atma is attributeless. It cannot be proved because it's not an object of experience. Science, as long as it keeps looking at Atma as an object, it will never reach that, because Atma is the very subject which is analyzing everything. So perhaps Vedanta starts where the science ends, and Vedanta itself is the highest science. As we are seeing in all these classes, all of this is talked about in a very, very systematic manner, in a step-by-step manner. And that is what great acharyas like Adi Shankara has brought about beautifully in their Bhashyams and Brahma Sutras. So again, looking at the nature of the Atma, Adrushtam, Avyavaharyam, Agrahyam, so that which is beyond perception, beyond transactions, beyond the sense organs, beyond it's incomprehensible, and beyond inference, beyond ideas, beyond thoughts, beyond concepts. So describing something which cannot be described is the greatest challenge. And there is one more beautiful mantra from the Mundakopanishad, 1.6. Etatadreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam achakshushrotram tadapani padam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yad bhuta yonim paripashyanti dhiraha. Again, that which cannot be grasped, it is the attributeless principle. It doesn't have any eyes, ears, etc. It's eternal, full of manifestation. It's all pervading, subtlest of the subtlest. It is the imperishable, and it is the source of all creations. We will see this part of creation in the next session, in the next week. And it is perceived by the wise only. The wise is the one who has got the Gnana Yogyata, and through Shastra and Guru has made his mind very, very, his intellect and mind very subtle to grasp this subtlest subject matter. And that realized one is the Sthita Prajna, and we will see the benefits of it. Once a person is realized, he is Purnam. I mean, he has nothing to worry about, and he is a Jivan Mukta. Another beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita, na jayate mruyate va kadachit. So this soul is neither born, nor it will ever die, nor having once existed does it ever cease to be. The soul is without birth, eternal, immortal, and ageless. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. With this, we know that the Atma is eternal and the Anatma is ephemeral. Now, and that is the biggest shift now. I mean, with this knowledge, what we develop is the Viveka, or the discrimination between Atma and the Anatma. The first step when we start, or before starting this Vedantic knowledge or our journey in spirituality, we identify with our body. So we say that our body is the Kshetram. Then with the knowledge, we realize that I'm a mixture of both the material Anatma, which is my body and mind, as well as the non-material Atma, which is the consciousness principle. And then on further learning, further refinement of the mind, further yogyata, getting this sadhana chatushtaya, I then start to claim that I am the Atma with this incidental body and mind, which we use for the transaction in this world. So we start saying that anatma abhimana tyagam. So we start to negate or not take our anatma, which is the body mind, very seriously, but focus more on the atma, which is the atma abhimana nishta. That is what will start to develop. And to get to this level, Vedanta teaches a very important principle, and Swamiji elaborates this beautifully. I think there's no substitute to listening to Swamiji's talks, and whatever we try and say, I mean, because of the Swamiji's talks only, we all have come to this level. I think the best effort we are making is to introduce Swamiji through this platform so that each one can listen to the talks that he has given. And these are very, very cryptic, very subtle subject matter, and one will have to listen to Swamiji's talks to fully get the principles. There are two fundamental laws of Vedanta, and that is called as the Drik Drishya Viveka. Drik Drishya Viveka is also a Prakarana Grantha by one of the other great Swamijis called Vidyaranya. So the first law in this Drik Drishya Viveka, Drishya is what is seen and the seer is the Drik. So seer and the seen. The first law in this is I am different from whatever I experience. So me, I'm actually not the same as if I'm seeing this box here. This box is different to whatever I'm experiencing, and that is fairly simple. And the second law is even more difficult to kind of understand. All the attributes belong to the object of experience, not me, the subject. I, the experiencer, is free from all the attributes. And this is a significant jump. So if you look at this carefully, the experiencer is free from all the attributes, but I am not the object of experience. Now, if we look at it, I can see this, camera here. I know that I am not the camera. That's easy. Now, I can see or I can feel my eyes. Therefore, it is not me. So what is giving the sentience or this thought process that, okay, I'm seeing the eyes is my mind behind this. So I can actually understand, at least observe my thoughts, observe my intellect. So long as I am observing and I am experiencing, that is not me. Therefore, what is that which is me is that sentient principle which is enlivening me, which is that Atma which cannot be experienced. And that is the biggest shift that we will learn from this Drik Drishya Viveka. And that is what is actually told in this particular verse as well, the 13.3, the extension from the previous verse. Kshetragnam chapimam vidhi sarva kshetraishu bharata. Kshetra kshetragnayor gnanam yatta gnanam matam mama. So Krishna continues to explain this kshetragna, who is the knower of the kshetram, the consciousness principle, is none other than me, myself. So this is a Mahavakya which brings about the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. This Kshetragna that is there in the Jiva is none other than me. So that knowledge of knowing that I am the Kshetragna and this Kshetragna is there in everyone is the true knowledge, is the highest knowledge. This Atma Anatma Viveka is a true knowledge, is what Bhagavan Krishna says. This universal prayer, I think we are all familiar. Dr. Annie Besant from Theosophical Society has come up with this, and I saw so much of similarities between what was there in the previous verse and this one. Oh, hidden life vibrant in every atom, oh, hidden light shining in every creature, oh, hidden love embracing all in oneness, may all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. So this is the identification of this Kshetragna in me with everyone, because there is only one Kshetragna, there is only one Atma. The Sarvatma Bhava is also brought about beautifully in this one. So what is the benefit of knowing all this? Kathopanishad beautifully brings this out, and there are several verses like this which brings about the Gnana Phalam. So the one who is who knows about this discrimination and abides by the higher nature does not grieve, na shochati. So we have also seen that in the Sri Krishna's first verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Ashochyana nashochastva pragnavadamsha bhashase gatasura gatasunscha nanu sochanti pandita. The one who is aware of this highest knowledge does not grieve, and because he's attained moksha, he no longer suffers from the limitations of the samsara. So now we are saying that, so this particular Atma cannot be experienced. So how do we know? How do we even accept that there is something like this? So this is another beautiful verse from Kathopanishad. Naiva vacha na manasa praptum sakyo na chakshusa asti ithi bhruvato nyatra katam tadupanabhyate. The only way that we will know that it exists is by accepting that it does exist, and that can come only after we have the absolute conviction on the Guru Shastra Pramana. We have the 5 sense organs. Unless we use the 6th sense organ or the 6th Pramana as the Shastram and Guru, we will not be able to accept that Atma or Brahman is there. And only through Guru Shastra Pramana we will be able to appreciate Atma. Shraddhavan labate jnanam. So chapter 4, Krishna has also told this beautifully. The Shraddha on Guru Shastra Pramana is absolutely must, and to get that we need to have the initial yogyata. So we have seen that in the Shatka Sampatti, Shraddha is one of the 6-fold disciplines which comes in the Shatka Sampatti of the Sadhana Chatushtaya, for a Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna. So let us all be working towards this, and let us all get to this Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna, Sampatti, and only then we can attain this Gnanam through Guru and Shastra, and that gives us the ripening process, and then we can snap from the samsara very easily and effortlessly like the cucumber. And snapping from the samsara doesn't mean running away from our responsibilities, but it is not suffering from the psychological problems that we may face in our day-to-day lives, and that itself is the moksha. So I think this is my last slide. Thank you very much, sir. I think we can now, sir, if you want to add anything, and later on we can open for discussions. Thank you.
Nothing at all, Divakar. This was excellent. You brought in very relevant quotations from the Gita and the Upanishads about the Atma, about the Atmapala. You gave us the very fundamental background. You brought in that beautiful mantra which tries to explain Atma from the Mandukya, Nantat Prajnam na Bahish Prajnam na Ubayata Prajnam, and so on. Wonderful presentation. And it's very nice that you have given enough time for discussion. This is how a good talk should be, where you give the topic and the real discussion will be now. And I would really leave it. We have Dr. Divakar has taken only half the amount of time that was offered to him, so that we can have a meaningful discussion. And I think I would leave the floor open to the participants and Dr. Divakar to clarify who is this hero, that common hero, as Sri Krishna says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. That principle which is there in all of us is none other than Sri Krishna. And to know more about that, please ask Dr. Divakar directly.
Thank you, Dr. Divakar, for that wonderful session. And now it's open to questions. Kindly unmute yourselves and ask any question you want. You can ask questions on the Mahamrityunjaya mantra also.
Maybe you could stop the screen share, Divakar, so that the screen may be a little bigger also.
Yes, kindly ask any questions. Such a wonderful thing. We are still reflecting over it, Dr. Divakar.
How the Simran and so-called the meditation achieve this consciousness realization of the Atma so that it can merge with the Paramatma.
So if I have understood this question correctly,
Simran and meditation.
how does the meditation achieve the consciousness?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now we have Swamiji explains this beautifully. In order to, I mean, as a knowledge, as information, we all know what Atma is. And to abide to our higher nature, we must have the Gnana Yogyata. And the Gnana Yogyata comes from Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Upasana Yoga is all about meditations. Upasana Yoga deals with several different types of meditations, starting from focusing meditation to the expanding meditation. So how we are able to refine our mind, focus ourselves onto a particular topic, particularly in this, for this one must have the, mumukshatvam, the deep desire, the yearning towards the Atma Gnanam, and then they will be able to, I mean, more on the realization of the Atma, it is getting rid of the Anatma is the topic. And that is how we kind of, because we are already that, we are all the spiritual beings with this incidental body, mind. So it is getting rid of the Anatma is what is the Mrityunjaya. So, and that comes through the sadhana. And for somebody who has taken a lateral route to Gnana Yoga, without the Karma Yoga and the Upasana Yoga, let's say, I mean, that has to definitely be there. Nididhyasanam or the Vedantic meditation is, described Vedantic meditation is living the Gnana Yogam. We have Shravanam and Mananam, which is the learning and then contemplative clarification of the Gnana Yoga, and the Nididhyasanam is the contemplation of the Gnanam that we have learned. So Nididhyasanam for somebody who has entered the Gnana Yoga without the full eligibility, whereas somebody with eligibility, that Atmanishta or Gnananishta happens very quickly, and the eligibility is through Upasana Yoga. Sir?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Divakar sir, this is Manjula. Thank you for such an presentation. Is how you know about Atma, it feels that we don't know anything about it. A small doubt. Now, in the time of and Abhokta, if you could put in some insight into it.
Sorry, I lost your voice in between. So the question was about Akarta and Abhokta. Not sure if I am audible.
I want to know some tips how to practice Akarta and Abhokta.
Sir, do you want to take this?
See, what do you mean by akarta abhokta? Now, as the body, I will always be in action. That means as anatma, you cannot be free from any form of action. And the moment you do any action, you have to have the consequences of action, you become a bhokta. Now, remember all the time, we are a combination of Atma and Anatma. Now, therefore, how do we play the role of Akarta? As Atma, Atma is always Akarta. Atma never does anything. So, therefore, we need to play a little game with ourselves. The game is, and what I understand is, what is called the law of least effort. Now you suddenly ask this question, I do not know from where the answer comes. Suddenly it was pushed into me. Then what you do is you allow yourself, for whatever intelligence to flow and allow it to speak through you. When it is not that I am speaking, but I allow it to happen. So from doing any action to being a facilitator. A facilitator is one who allows things to happen. And when you have the intention, let this question be answered. So then what happens? This is my understanding, because when I do it from my body, there will always be a certain amount of action. So there will be, but how do you be an akarta? You will see great evolved souls around them. So much of activity happens, but you will see they themselves are not doing anything. Gautama Buddha sitting under a Bodhi tree or a Ramana, you will see are embodiments of Akarta, Abhokta. They themselves are not doing. But you will see the president of the country, people from all over the world come to them because so much is happening around them. So I think it is a process of evolution where you begin to allow things to happen. That is what they say, do less. There is something called the law of least action. The law of least action says do less, accomplish more. And what is the pinnacle of the law of least effort is do nothing, accomplish everything. That is what is akarta abhokta, as I understand.
Can I say something in this? See, there is a
Yes, sir.
quote from Guru Granth Sahib also on this. Karm kart hoye ne kami tisko hot prapta Swami. Swami here is once again the merging with the Atma and the Paramatma. Yani we must do, we have to be action oriented, but we should not get binded by that. And doing the karmas, and if we can get rid of the bindings of the karma, then automatically we'll see what we want to say. It's like this, we are going towards that, trying to, do everything, but still we are not binded by that. That effort and the prayers, the meditation has to be there. Probably will go closer to that. Because what we wanted, because as you also defined, Atma is beyond so-called, karmas, it is beyond, at less. But it doesn't mean that it do not have any attribute. It is above the challenges of the attributes.
So basically, Atma Anatma Viveka will play a role in this,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Viveka will play a role. Viveka will play a bigger role in this. It's not a knowledge. It's not our efforts. It's not our effort. Whatever is attributed finally to us will not lead to this liberation. But we have to continue doing all these things and rise above that. And that's why even the Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also said that you choose the path you want, whether you go in Jnana Marga or you go in Karma Marga or you do this one. But you have to rise above that and I will be there. The path is yours. These are only the means. Don't get attached to the means, but we need these things to go ahead.
So will Upasana Yoga help in this process? Suppose, as Hegde sir said that there is some intelligence which always feels the doership in us. Will meditation or any Upasana Yoga help me to be not bonded with it, with the action?
Certainly it does. I mean, I think if I can add this avidya kama karma, so the ignorance about our own identity leads to our desires, and those, because of these desires, the actions, and because of these actions, we own both the doership as well as we become the doer and the receiver. So if I turn it around, and I mean, I don't know whether this is appropriate, vidya nishkama and karma becomes, there is no karma basically, and so then you have either karma yoga itself, we are not owning up to owning up as either the doer or the receiver. And like you say, that's the process. I think and that we will continue to keep doing, and the only person who will know that is ourselves and nobody else. So nobody else will know. And how sincere we are in this process, and how is our sadhana towards this. And certainly Upasana Yoga does help, because mind mastery is extremely important. Karma Yoga is not possible without Upasana Yoga, and vice versa. So even to have this Ishvara Arpana and Prasada Bhava, Upasana Yoga is required. So I'm sure this is a work in progress for most of us.
Thank you, sir.
There
No
is a question in
questions?
the chat box. Chat.
Yes, there is one question in the chat box.
How do we achieve? Vedanta speaks about self and consciousness, and how do we achieve, or what are the means through which we can do a self-inquiry? I think now, I mean, the beautiful 8 sessions have now taken place. So, a series of talks are meant for exactly this. The self-inquiry doesn't happen as a first chapter. So we have got to have a ripened mind, and there are processes prescribed, described, given to us on a platter by the Vedas, the Shastras, and the Gurus. And for us, like this, are a great starting point for most of us who are also, very busy in our material world. So taking up these things and then gradually seeing ourselves how we are stepping up to the next, next level, and then with that, then Atma Jnanam becomes a reality, and we can abide to it. And Swamiji says that because nobody will have something like a Brahmananda or Atmananda. Nobody can say that they've seen Atma and they can experience something very different. It's an intellectual transformation, and what we kind of anchor to. And if that happens at all times, then that person is a Gnananishta. So I think that is a process which will happen through step-by-step methods of Gnana Yogyata through Karma and Upasana Yoga, and get to Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhi, Shatka, Sampatti, and Mumukshatvam as the preparatory sadhanas, and then Gnanam, and then Mukti, or Videha Mukti. Sorry, Jivan Mukti to begin with, and then once one exhausts all the karmas, then the Videha Mukti. Sir?
Thank you. Any other questions?
As we are in the cusp of Mahashivaratri, and knowing you and your background and your knowledge on Sri Rudram, can you please tell us a little about Sri Rudram and the importance of Sri Rudram at the time of Shivaratri?
Sri Rudram is a very popular, extremely popular, Vedantic material. It is from Yajurveda. So it features both in Krishna and Shukla Yajurveda. So it has got 11 Anuvakas. I mean, it's famous for, it is said that the Sri Rudram, the very text itself comes somewhere exactly in the middle of all the available Vedas, and within that comes the Anuvaka where Om Namah Shivaya comes. It says that Om Namah Shivaya itself comes exactly in the middle, and therefore it is extremely auspicious. Sri Rudram also gives a sadhaka 3 different levels of understanding of the God, from Ekarupa Ishvara to Vishwarupa Ishvara to Arupa Ishvara. So all 3 components are described in the Sri Rudram. The famous 11th Anuvaka, which starts with Om Nama Somaya Cha Rudraya Cha. So that particular Anuvaka as Om Namah Shivaya in that. Shiva, of course, the name itself is very, very auspicious, that which is not. And so the very chanting of Sri Rudram in the way that it is prescribed itself is known to bring a lot of benefits, spiritual benefits. I think that's there is a daily, a lot of people do recite Sri Rudram on a daily basis. In fact, even in Upanishads, it is described that those who chant Sri Rudram and understand Sri Rudram will attain moksha.
Sir, you said Ekarupa, Vishwarupa, the other one I want, sir, the third one?
Arupa, Nirguna Brahman. I mean the Nirguna, Arupa.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Anyone else with any questions? Kindly unmute and ask your question. I don't think there are many questions anymore. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Divakar. I was amazed at your knowledge and how much you could bring into this short session. And I was really wondering at how you were quoting from all the Upanishads, various writers, the Bhagavad Gita. It was really amazing. And thank you so much. Even as, Dr. Hegde said, it's so auspicious that tomorrow is Shivratri, and you explained the Mahamrityunjaya mantra so well for us. We are indeed blessed. Thank you so much, and we look forward to having you at the School of Ancient Wisdom in person. And I would also like to thank you, Dr. Hegde, as always. You are so, you have brought in so many speakers, and it's really ancient wisdom coming to the School of Ancient Wisdom. So thank you so much. And we look forward to the next 2 sessions. So everyone, kindly tune in again next Wednesday at the same time for session number 9. So thank you, everyone. And happy Shivaratri. May the Lord bless all of us. Thank you.
I would like to thank Sajani ma'am, Timappa sir, and Swami Paramarthanandaji's talks, and the people who have transcribed the talks of Swami Paramarthanandaji. That's been the greatest, kind of treasure for all of us. So thank you, everyone. I'll, chant one Shanti Pata, and before we end. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, and a very happy Shivaratri to all of you.
Thank you. Happy Shivaratri, and everyone, please tune in next Wednesday at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Divakar.
Divakarji, thank you very much. It was very pleasant to hear you.